Mr Speaker, I am delighted to be bringing the Severe Fetal Impairment Abortion Amendment Bill before the Assembly today. This bill tackles disability discrimination and how the law perpetuates stereotypes. No one expresses this better than Heidi Crowder, and I would like to express my sincere gratitude to her as she tirelessly fights for the rights of those with disabilities. I think that we would all agree that she is an incredible and passionate young woman whose contribution to our society is immeasurable. It was in May last year that Heidi called on this Assembly to make it clear that we did not accept the abortion regulations that Westminster imposed on us, which make it legal to abort on the basis of non-fatal disabilities right up to birth, while affording non-disabled babies a far higher degree of protection. My party responded to Heidi's intervention when we tabled the motion, and I quote, that this Assembly welcomes the important intervention of disability campaigner Heidi Crowder and rejects the imposition of abortion legislation which extends to all non-fatal disabilities, including Down syndrome, and that motion passed by a simple majority. Sinn Féin at that time tabled an amendment to the motion to make it clear that they did not wish to reject the regulations in any respect other than their imposition of abortion on the basis of non-fatal disability up until birth. The impact of their amendment on the DUP motion was to propose that it would read that this Assembly welcomes the important intervention of disability campaigner Heidi Crowder and rejects the specific legislative provision in the abortion legislation which goes beyond fetal abnormalities to include non-fatal disabilities, including Down syndrome. Thus, in the space of 2 votes on the 2nd of June, 75 out of 90 MLAs voted to make it clear that they did not support the regulations to the extent that they made provision for abortion on the basis of non-fatal fetal abnormality. The bill before us today is very much the outcome of that process. The bill has one clause of substance that gives expression to the determination of an overwhelming majority of members, representative of our whole community, to reject the provision of abortion on the basis of non-fatal disability. Mr Speaker, let me at this stage put on record my thanks to other colleagues in other political parties that support the bill on that basis. Robbie Butler, MLA, Dolores Kelly, MLA, Trevor Lunn, MLA. All 3 have publicly endorsed this bill, and I want to pay tribute to them for doing so. The bill makes it clear that there is no place for disability discrimination in Northern Ireland in 2021. Section 7(1)(b) of the abortion regulation permits abortion up to term in the cases of non-fatal disabilities for conditions such as Down syndrome, cleft palate and clubfoot, something that is not permitted in relation to preborn babies of the same gestation who do not have a disability. It thereby perpetuates myths that exist in our society around people with non-fatal disabilities such as Down syndrome, that they have less to contribute or that they are expendable. This sends out the message loud and clear, as Heidi has eloquently demonstrated, that the lives of people with disabilities are less valuable and less worthy of protection than the lives of people without disabilities. To have a law which fosters this thinking in 2021 is completely unacceptable. Last June, I described Regulation 7(1)(b) as being years out of date and a regressive and backward step in the campaign against discrimination and equality for people with disabilities. That is why I have tabled this bill to give effect through Clause 1 of deleting Regulation 7(1)(b). The purpose of this bill is to tackle the disability discrimination that is so obvious within our current abortion regulations, and to right a wrong that this Assembly acknowledged in June of last year. Mr Speaker, there is no way that you can allow abortion on the basis of a severe fetal impairment such as Down syndrome without perpetuating stereotypes about people with disabilities. That it is perceived that the birth of a child with Down syndrome or another non-fatal disability is something to be avoided is desperately sad. This does not reflect how people with Down syndrome see the world, nor does it reflect the particular joy that individuals like Heidi bring to their communities. Let me tell you some different stories today. Let me tell you about Lily, who has Down syndrome, whose parents say, "The last 20 months have been the hardest, most challenging time of our lives. They have also been the best, most rewarding, loving, funny, busy, amazing time of our lives." Let me tell you about Daisy, who has spina bifida, whose parents say, "She's just perfect and we can't imagine life without her. She lights up any room that we enter and is our absolute hero." Let me tell you about Kirsty, who also has spina bifida, who says, "My mum was told I'd never go to a mainstream school nor walk. I have achieved both and now I am in university." Kirsty now has a baby boy of her own. Let me tell you about Clara. Her mum says, and says honestly, "Hearing that your unborn baby would have a special need was very, very frightening." But she also says, "The love we have for Clara is immense. She is her own little character. She's funny, happy, mischievous, and knows what she wants." Let me tell you about Aidan, whose parents say, "We feel so lucky to have Aidan in our lives and can't imagine a world without him. Aidan is Aidan. Down syndrome does not define who he is." These individuals bring such richness into our community and our society, and I don't want to have or imagine a world without individuals like these. Mr. Speaker, if we do not repeal 7(1)(b), then however well-intentioned our decision may be, the message that we are sending those with non-fatal disabilities is clear. I don't want to be part of a society that describes children like these as a diagnosis or a risk. Neither do I want to be part of a society that communicates the worth of a person's life based on their perceived ability. I know that this is not what we intend, but sadly the lived experiences of individuals tell us this is the legacy that screening with a view to termination can leave. Too many women have spoken of the pressure they felt to terminate, and individuals and families have spoken of the attitudes that still persist. This is not something that our Assembly should tolerate. After years of campaigning for equality and for the eradication of disability discrimination, we must not permit laws like Regulation 7(1)(b) to exist. The similar provision in Great Britain was introduced into the Abortion Act in 1990. That was more than 30 years ago, and it's now hopelessly out of date and is, of course, being challenged by Heidi Crowder in the High Court. One of the issues that has been raised around this bill is the perception of the struggle parents may face as they navigate challenges associated with disability. Might we recognise that part of the struggle that parents may face is not about their child, but it's about our misconceptions? One of the things that can make life harder for parents of a child with Down syndrome is the belief that a particular health condition or delay is just normal for Down syndrome. These assumptions can lead to a failure to diagnose accurately or provide timely and needed medical care. This is called diagnostic overshadowing. In 1900, the normal life expectancy for a child with Down syndrome was just 9 years old. Now, people with Down syndrome live into their 50s and 60s. This shows that what is normal depends massively on environment and standards of care. This bill is about tackling the attitudes and the myths that lead to failures to provide high-quality support and care. This bill is about ensuring attitudes towards disability are not based on fear. The support from many people in the medical profession for this bill speaks volumes for the positive attitude within our health service that they have in providing the best care for both families and preborn children. Members will have just received an email, and that number continues to rise. We're now almost at 200 doctors who have challenged the inaccuracies that were contained within the briefing paper circulated to members last week by the political advisor of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynaecologists in London, and they are calling for MLAs to support this bill. This includes doctors and consultants in Northern Ireland that practice in obstetrics and gynaecology, sexual and reproductive health care, palliative medicine, psychiatry, general surgery, emergency medicine, general practice, to name but some areas. Let me quote Dr. Claire Sinton, a paediatrician working in the Royal Belfast Hospital, and she says, "As a paediatrician, I have cared for many babies and children with disabilities. The lives of these children are no less valuable or meaningful because of their differing levels of mental or physical ability. To offer additional access to abortion for babies diagnosed antenatally with non-fatal abnormalities sends a clear signal that we, as a society, place less value on the life of a disabled individual. I feel strongly that to be human is to have intrinsic value, regardless of gender, race or ability. I oppose a law that seeks to single out disabled babies as being less worthy of protection or even the opportunity to live. John Watt is Emeritus Professor of Neonatal Paediatrics in the University College London, and he says, "As a doctor who has cared for many newborn babies and older children with disabilities, I strongly support this bill. It is absolutely right that the law recognises that an unborn baby with a non-fatal disability deserves the same protection as an unborn baby without a disability. We should be a society which welcomes and celebrates the lives of children with disabilities rather than exposing them to the threat of abortion." Mr. Speaker, we are richer for the presence and contribution of individuals like Heidi in our society. I think here about my own great uncle Samuel, and I've enjoyed listening to the many stories about him. He had the condition Down syndrome, but he's made a profound impact on my family, and his legacy lives on. In 2011, the American Journal of Medical Genetics published a series of articles about Down syndrome. One of these covered a study of people with Down syndrome who were older than 12 on information that could be shared with new and expectant parents of children with Down syndrome. Among those surveyed, nearly 99% of people with Down syndrome indicated that they were happy with their lives. 97% liked who they are, and 96% liked how they look. Nearly 99% of people with Down syndrome expressed love for their families, and 97% liked their brothers and sisters. Another article surveyed the views of siblings. 96% of brothers and sisters that responded to the survey indicated that they had affection toward their sibling with Down syndrome, and 94% of older siblings expressed feelings of pride. 79% of parents said their outlook on life was more positive because of their child. Does this not show that these individuals have value and contribute? What value do you want Northern Ireland society to place on these individuals? Allow me to talk about real people rather than statistics. Edwin and Karen Wilson from County Fermanagh, whose daughter Hannah has Down syndrome, described their parenting journey as a roller coaster of emotions, from elation at attained milestones to frustrations at well-meaning bureaucracy. We always believed that Hannah's greatest hurdle in life would be other people's attitudes, and this has proven to be correct. As a family, we are adamant that we would not change anything about Hannah. God has entrusted us with a unique young lady who has so much to give society. Her warmth, compassion and generosity of spirit are qualities we all need more of, and we thank God for the blessing that Hannah is to us. Mr. Speaker, I firmly believe that we should not accommodate laws which contribute to a negative attitude towards those with disabilities. We should ensure legislation affords them the same level of protection as babies without a disability. Let us think about the message we are sending to parents like Edwin and Karen, or parents who have just received the news of a Down syndrome condition or another non-fatal disability. As a Belfast mother, Laura Denny, whose son Nathan has Down syndrome, so aptly reminds us, it wasn't until my son Nathan was in my arms that I realised I had a baby, not just a diagnosis. This is our opportunity to ensure that babies like Nathan receive the protection that they deserve. It is so tragic that in 2018, a survey conducted in the rest of Great Britain revealed that of parents who received an antenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome, 69% were offered a termination on receiving news of the diagnosis, after advising that they were continuing with the pregnancy. 46% of women were asked again if they wished to terminate. It was only at the beginning of this year that St George's University Hospitals and various charities developed an alternative care pathway for an antenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome that is not simply an offer of an abortion in Great Britain. Mr. Speaker, we want an alternative pathway for families in Northern Ireland, and I commend my bill to the House and I urge you to join with me in sending a clear and unequivocal message that in Northern Ireland, people with disabilities are equally valued. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.